which takes us now to our next topic, HS2, the high-speed rail. Good thing, bad thing. Michael Coddenston from Amersham in Buckinghamshire.
Good afternoon, Jonathan.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak about this.
Pleasure.
Jonathan, there are good arguments for upgrading England's transport system. However, there are 5 very strong arguments for saying that HS2 is the wrong one. The first is the government's own report, RP2, the Rail Package 2, prepared by the Department for Transport in 2010, which showed that by upgrading the West Coast Main Line, we get an increase of between 135 and 176% capacity. Secondly, that upgrade would cost £2 billion, not the £11.9 billion mentioned in the same report, and the upgrade would be deliverable before 2026. It also has the benefit of being incremental in that as you upgrade, you can slow down or speed up the process according to requirements. That's just on Rail Package 2. As far as jobs and businesses are concerned, there's a claim from the government that 40,000 jobs would be created, whereas in fact only 1,500 new rail jobs would be created, plus 9,000 temporary jobs. This is partly due to the fact that equipment and materials would have to come from overseas, since we don't have them here, and since we'd also have to go overseas for the finance, much of the manpower would be from overseas also, as a part of the condition for going ahead with the project.
Are you, and the reason why you shouldn't be, incidentally, but are you influenced in your analysis and in the concentration you've put into it by the fact that you live in Amersham in Buckinghamshire?
It's impossible not to be, but one tries to look at the government's own message that it's in the national interest. Now, if the principles for the national interest are not correct, it doesn't matter whether you live in Birmingham, Amersham or West Cornwall. And there's also good reason for people in these other areas to consider what it would mean for them anyway. And I was going to refer to that under the heading of finance.
I think I'm going to have to, because I've got so many calls. You've made 2 powerful points. May I leave it there, please? Thank you. Frank Gladwell from Manchester.
Good afternoon, Jonathan.
Afternoon to you.
When I was 4, I lived on a farm where I live now, with a half-mile frontage to the most modern railway line in Britain, on a direct link from Manchester to Marylebone Station in London. I now live on a 13-mile spur to nowhere. There are more than one ways of linking London and Manchester. You can come via Derby over the Midland route that was closed in the 60s. You could reinstate the one I've just talked about. All the emphasis that you hear is about capacity on the West Coast Main Line. I think one argument that has not been conveyed adequately during this consultation is the view that the single availability of £32 billion could be singularly better used by looking at the whole rail network of this country and looking at recreating, reinstating, modernising and upgrading so that the whole national network benefits and not one single spine route.
Frank Gladwell, thank you. John Pike Mander writes, as somebody whose work has taken him around the world, but particularly to Japan and Germany, I can only attest to the necessity of an extensive high-speed rail link being developed in the UK. Only a fast, frequent, and above all, comfortable rail service will take people off our congested roads and polluting plains and encourage them to use the undisputed, ecologically more desirable form of transport by train. Secondly, whilst everybody seems to be extolling the marginal time saving the high-speed rail link would afford, the simple fact that we need more capacity on the railways seems not to get enough emphasis. Only the high-speed rail link can address this, as the existing lines are already very close to maximum capacity. Steve George now from Twickenham in London.
Hello, Mr. Dimbleby.
Afternoon to you.
Unlike some of your other callers, I don't stand to be affected by the high-speed rail link whatsoever. It's not going to be anywhere near me. So in that sense, I don't have any vested interest at all. What I do think is that the government have singularly failed to convince me why, in an age of video conferencing and IT, which is advancing by the year, why is it necessary to save 10 or 15 minutes on a trip from one point in the country to another? I think if the country had money sloshing around to spare, maybe maybe if they tried a bit harder, they could make a case for it. But at the moment, they're telling us that we're broke. If you wanted to convince the public that we needed something done with our infrastructure, if the government had decided to build 4 massive new prisons to the north, south, east and west of the country, I think the public might have been able to see the benefits of that. But this high-speed rail link, it's insanity that they've singularly failed to explain what the benefits are going to be. What a waste of money.
OK, thank you. Go in Wharton next.
Yes, I've been living in France for a long time, and I often come across the TGV Grand Vitesse crossing parts of the country, and if you are in the vicinity of it going through a cutting, it is like experiencing a minor earthquake about to erupt. I do think that the people who are involved in all this ought to go and experience what it's like to be near this train track that goes through the countryside. And the other thing is, if there's so many people wanting to travel and not enough room, why aren't you using, I want to propose they use double-decker trains like they do in other countries. What about that?
Well, they would have to redo some of the tunnels for double-decker trains if it was on the existing line, wouldn't they? Otherwise, there'd be a very nasty accident as soon as you got out of Euston.
Yes, I mean, if you had ordinary double-decker trains running, if they're too tall to go under the bridges or anything like that, then you can replace the employment they're trying to make by building the line by rebuilding the bridges and making, as your previous caller said, modernising the whole system.
Thank you very much. Chris Waller writes from Pristina in Kosovo, listening to the programme from somewhere away. I find it unbelievable that every time this issue is discussed, some 3 aspects are overlooked by all those involved in the discussions. 1, the existing East Coast Main Line and West Coast Main Line have stock running at 125 miles an hour that were originally introduced to run at 140 miles an hour. Why has track signalling and paving not been upgraded to achieve this? 2, new generation HS2 trains will require huge amounts of electricity to run at 250 miles an hour. How on earth are we going to generate such quantities, yet alone afford to do so? And 3, in all the heat and light, the cross-country route from south-west to north-east and north-west is always overlooked. When will that run at last at 125 miles an hour? And I can squeeze you in, Steve George from Twickenham in London, but you have to make it very, very short. Peter Parkinson, I'm sorry.
Hello.
From Shepley. Very briefly, I'm afraid.
Yes, thank you. We live in an island 900 miles from Land's End to John O'Groats. What's people going to do with the 15 minutes they're going to save from London to Birmingham? I feel that if we had a country where everybody could travel comfortably on the trains, and then a high-speed train were for the rich and the people who can afford it, it'd be a better thing.
OK. But thank you very much. I'm afraid that is all that we've got time for. And incidentally, on that subject too, that was the balance of calls and emails as they came into us.